If you're watching this lesson, you're probably toying with the idea of hiring someone to build out your van. I want to start by sharing some personal experience with the company that built my first van as a warning. I haven't really talked too much about this publicly, and I'm also not going to share his name here, but I think there is a very valuable lesson to be learned. Back in 2015, I had my Sprinter on order from the dealer and was searching for someone to build it out for me. I considered Sportsmobile, but I wanted something that felt a little bit more like me. And Sportsmobile creates a quality product, but you're a little limited by your color choices and layouts and whatnot. So in hindsight, I could have saved myself a ton of headache if I had just went with Sportsmobile, but I mistakenly prioritized a custom look over function. One day I was scrolling Instagram and I found a photo of a van with beautiful cabinets made out of reclaimed barnwood and really nice looking white countertops. And I saw it and I thought, that's exactly the style that I wanted. So I contacted that builder, flew out to California to meet with him, and shortly after signed a contract. During our initial meeting, there were a few red flags, but honestly, I was wooed by the photos and I ignored my gut instinct. Now let's fast forward a few months. I'm in the design phase with the builder, and I decided I wanted a full indoor bathroom and shower in the van. Despite the fact that the company had never done this and built an indoor shower ever before, he agreed to do it, no questions asked. In hindsight, the job of a builder, apart from doing your build, is to help you weigh your options and to steer you in a good direction. It would have been great if my builder had said, well, having an indoor shower with the layout you're proposing poses some challenges for water storage, and you're only going to have room for 10 gallons inside the van. The rest is going to have to go out. If he had raised that thought, I maybe would have said, well, maybe I don't need a shower, but he didn't. And so I ended up with an indoor shower and only 10 gallons of water inside the van. Another point we should have discussed, but we didn't, was what kind of water heater I needed and where it was going to go. That was also an afterthought. If he had raised these two questions, I might have thought twice about the indoor bathroom. So this is just one example. We never really talked about my solar setup, which I ended up having to replace altogether just 6 months into the completed build, or what kind of fridge or stove I wanted. He just made those decisions for me, and him being the expert, I followed his lead. So throughout the whole build process, he was constantly behind schedule. He was also asking me for more money without having anything to show for what I already paid. And it seemed really fishy, but I already felt like I was in too deep, and it was too late to pull out and find somebody else new. He received the van from me in March and promised to have it done by early June. And then when early June rolled around, he told me it was nearly done, so I flew to California to go pick it up. When I got there, I found a van that was in complete disarray, still with weeks to go, 6 weeks to be exact. So he lied over and over again, and he threw a serious wrench into my epic summer road trip that I had planned, and it was just a bummer situation all around. After I finally got the van, things were instantly falling apart. The shower handle fell off 10 minutes after I left his shop, the shower pan was leaking, and the batteries weren't charging from the solar. He never gave me any sort of owner's manual like he promised, and I was left feeling like I had just made the worst and most expensive mistake of my entire life. He couldn't afford to pay for me to have these things fixed unless I drove all the way back to his shop in Southern California and he did the work himself. Since I really couldn't trust him at this point, I decided to take care of the repairs myself and ended up dumping nearly $15,000 more money into the van. This was not the way I wanted to start van life, and I was embarrassed and mad, and instead of spending my time adventuring, my time was consumed fixing things. In the end, once I got everything working properly, I still love that van, but imagine all the headaches and money I could have saved myself if I hadn't gone into the process with blinders on. So that leads us to this lesson on how to screen a conversion company to make sure they know what they are doing. Having experience building pretty high-end furniture in a house does not equate to building a solid, durable cabinets in a van that shakes and flexes and constantly moves every time you drive down the road. Knowing how to talk the talk about solar doesn't mean they actually know how to install an electrical setup with the highest regard for safety. Your builders should not be learning these things on YouTube as they go, as there's really no difference between them and a DIYer. I have an entire blog post and video dedicated to this topic that I'll link to below, but I wanted to share some tips for screening potential builders here in this course as well. What it all really boils down to is experience. You want someone whose work speaks for itself and that previous customers can stand behind. You don't want them experimenting on your van, and their prices should be justified by their experience, not what the market says their van might be worth based on some pretty photos. So how do you screen them? I'll tell you that you are in a much better place than I was already just by taking this course. Having the foundational knowledge and knowing what questions to ask about the different layouts and components mean you'll be able to tell if they actually know what they're talking about, rather than just taking everything as they say as truth. Okay, so first, how many vans have they built to sell? Do they have their own van that they live or travel in? The guy that built my van had never traveled in a van. A point that should have given me some pause in the first place, but you want to know, how could they possibly know what makes a good van if they've never slept or traveled in one for any extended period of time? Their experience level also matters, because as a new builder, what happens if they don't make it as a new business? Say you've had your van for 6 months and the builder's business goes belly up, then you're left to your own devices with no way to warranty the work. And speaking of warranties, you're going to want to make sure there's a warranty policy in the contract, no matter who you work with. My current van, this one that I'm sitting in here, was built by Outside Van, and they have a 30,000 mile 3-year warranty policy where they will fix things at no cost during that time period. If you're working with someone that only has built a handful of vans due to your budget, you'll want to stick with a simple layout and components that they already have experience with. That way, they've already made the mistakes and learned from them, and they can apply that knowledge to your build. The guy who built my first van probably had only converted 2 or 3 vans when I hired him. With the full indoor shower, my build was a lot more complex than his previous work and an entirely new layout, so he might as well have been starting from scratch. In order to see if they check out, you should also ask them for references and make a concerted effort to talk to at least a few of those people on the phone. You want to make sure that the references are legit and that they aren't just the builder's friends or relative that are, giving them the good word. You want to ask specific questions like, how is the builder like to work with? How many miles are on their van and how is it holding up? Is there anything that they changed? Has the van been worth the money that they paid for the conversion? Another way to get references, besides asking, is to browse the builder's feed on Instagram. Perhaps they've tagged some of their customers in photos, and reaching out to them is as simple as sending them a direct message on Instagram. Next, you'll want to talk to them about layouts and components. After you finish Module 2, which is the next one, you'll have a sense of all of the different options. And if it seems like you know more than them after finishing this course, you want to run away quick. You definitely want to work with someone who knows more than you. Ideally, you'd like to see some of their work in person as well, and you want to pay attention to the details. Like, do the drawers open and close smoothly? Are the curtains easy to put up? Does the plumbing seem straightforward and make sense? Is the bed comfortable? Notice if they cut corners here and there, and ask lots of questions. So that wraps up Module 1. After completing this module, you should know exactly what kind of vehicle is best suited for you and your budget and your lifestyle, and you should have a solid plan for whether you're going to DIY or hire someone. And for those of you planning to hire a conversion company, you know exactly how to screen them so you don't end up like me with my first van. In the next module, we're going to dive into the fun stuff, planning your conversion. We'll talk all about the pros and cons of different floor plans and go over all of the major components to turn a cargo van into a camper van. It's a lot to think about, but we're going to take you through it step by step, so get ready to plan your conversion from start to finish.